Atlantis has always had a king. Now I need something more.
But what could be greater than a king?
A hero.
Hey guys, what's happening? Nihat here with Film and Comics Explained, and today we'll be exploring the 7 Kingdoms of Atlantis, as featured in the recent Aquaman movie helmed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Patrick Wilson, Nicole Kidman, and Willem Dafoe. In the film's mythology, it's explained that the great city of Atlantis, then ruled by King Atlan, had once existed on land. Centuries ahead of other surface dwellers with regards to technology and innovation, the Atlanteans wielded such power that it nearly destroyed them. On the cusp of more breakthroughs and unwilling to slow down, their hubris led to the collapse of Atlantis, which sunk into the ocean after an experiment that went wrong, leading to the fragmentation of the Great Kingdom into 7 pieces named the Kingdom of Atlantis, the Kingdom of Zebulon, the Kingdom of the Fisherman, the Kingdom of the Trench, the Kingdom of the Deserters, the Kingdom of the Brine, and the Lost Kingdom. Now, in the comics, 4 of these kingdoms are explained as having been destroyed, with only Atlantis, Zebulon, and the Trench remaining. Given this, I'm so glad that Wan departed from the source material by introducing us to the Kingdom of the Fisherman and the Kingdom of the Brine, as well as giving a nod to the remaining 2, which had long since been destroyed. As these groups splintered off to pursue their own goals through magical and scientific means, their people began to evolve into separate-looking races that were all children of the original Atlantis. Though the kingdoms went down a slightly different path, adopting new ways of life that set them apart, each of them still kept to the custom of having a trident-wielding king. The Kingdom of Atlantis. First introduced in the movie Justice League, the City of Atlantis was built upon the sunken ruins of the ancient kingdom. Once a vibrant metropolis, the underwater city was now a mashup of ancient and futuristic technologies that had been shaped by its oceanic location. The most powerful of the races, in the film, it appears as though the City of Atlantis is predominantly inhabited by humanoids that were loyalists to the monarchy, and as the city was based upon the mythological City of Atlantis originally described by Plato, much of its architecture, iconography, and even their weaponry and armor has an ancient Greek feel to it. Atlantis is now ruled by King Orm, Arthur Curry's younger half-brother, who seeks to wage war on the surface world as revenge for centuries of pollution dumped into the seas, and the awful way in which humanity has treated the aquatic creatures of the world. The Kingdom of Zebulon. Ruled by King Nereus and home to Mira, Zebulon is a prison colony that had emancipated itself. Sharing much of the same customs and traditions of Atlantis, Zebulon was a powerful, war-driven state that valued valor and honor above all else. And apart from their trademark red hair, the Zebulon physiology was very similar to that of the Atlanteans. Due to the fact that the Zebellians were a proud race, King Orm was able to manipulate the war state into joining his quest for power by tricking them into believing that the surface dwellers were an immediate threat to their collective people. While in the film, the city is located around the Bermuda Triangle, the comics explained that Zebulon was actually located in another dimension called Dimension Aqua, which was only accessible via the Bermuda Triangle. It's also the source of Mira's unique hydrokinetic powers that set her apart from everyone else. The Kingdom of the Fisherman. While the Zebellians and Atlanteans retained their human appearance, those who lived in the Kingdom of the Fishermen slowly evolved to closely resemble the creatures of the sea, with scales, gills, and even fish-like tails. As mentioned earlier, this was actually one of the destroyed kingdoms in the comics, and to differentiate them from the Zebulons and Atlanteans, Wan drew inspiration from the merpeople of Tritonus featured in the comics, which were essentially a powerful magical race of ancient Atlanteans that lived in one of the 2 major city-states that made up the continent of Atlantis. In the film, the fishermen are portrayed as a society of intellectuals and philosophers that didn't seek violence, and though they were more concerned with poetry than politics, they too were drawn into King Orm's plans to reunite the remaining kingdoms against the surface world. The Kingdom of the Brine. Similar to the Fishermen, the Kingdom of the Brine also evolved from humanoids into sea creatures, taking the form of crustacean-like soldiers that possessed armored shells and claws. Described as a violent but intelligent race in the art and making of Aquaman, the Brine are fierce warriors who understand strength over reason, especially when defending their borders. This was of course another one of the destroyed nameless kingdoms of Atlantis mentioned in the comics, and with no elaboration on their race in the text, Wan and his creative team essentially created their kingdom from scratch. Primarily crustaceans, the Brine live on the seafloor and tend to keep to themselves unless provoked. Ironically, though they were the least intellectual of the developed races, they were the only ones that resisted King Orm's manipulation, choosing to stand their ground and fight off the combined might of the Atlanteans, the Zebulons, and the Fishermen in the film's climactic battle. The Kingdom of the Trench. First appearing in Aquaman issue number 1, published in 2011, the Trench is both the name of the kingdom and the race that lived within it. In the same way that both the Fishermen and the Brine had evolved from humanoids into marine-like creatures, the Trench were also made up of ancient Atlanteans that had diverted down another evolutionary path. But unlike their counterparts, the Trench were beast-like creatures that were incapable of reason, acting instead on primal instinct that dictated their every move. Taking their name from the Marianas Trench, which was their home, and housing voracious appetites, the trench would attack without strategy or mercy. And as such, their home was used to guard the entrance to the Lost Kingdom, which was also the location of Atlan's tomb. Due to the high pressure environment they now called home, the trench became durable creatures that could withstand this, and as the Marianas Trench was void of light, they also lost their eyesight and relied on echolocation to sense their environment. It should also be noted that although they'd evolved beyond recognition, they, like all the other races, still showed allegiance to the one who could wield Atlan's trident. The Deserters Kingdom. The first kingdom to separate from Atlantis, the Deserters retreated from the Atlantic Ocean to an inland sea in the Sahara. This of course eventually transformed into a desert, which turned their once vibrant home into a barren landscape that was inhospitable to life. Once home to Atlantis' grand armory and the location where Atlan's trident was forged, the kingdom went extinct once the precious waters had disappeared. Though its people and their way of life was now lost to time, both Arthur and Mira ventured to its location in the film to find the final resting place of the sacred trident, which had the physical and symbolic power to unite the remaining kingdoms. The Lost Kingdom. This of course leads us to the final kingdom, which has caused a bit of controversy among theorists, as in the film it's simply called the Lost Kingdom and it's mentioned as being part of the Seven, though it's never brought up again. While some people presume it's much like the Deserters Kingdom and that it was a city that had now been lost to time, I actually think it's a location where Arthur and Mira discover Atlan's tomb in the film's conclusion. This place, described as the Hidden Sea, is located in the Earth's core and can only be accessed through a small rift in the Kingdom of the Trench. And since it was the last location on the planet that had been relatively undisturbed over millennia, it still housed prehistoric creatures that had been long extinct on the surface world and the greater oceans of Earth. At the same time, it's never actually referred to as a kingdom by any of the characters, especially both Arthur and Mira, who refer to it as the Hidden Sea. So I'm open to the possibility that we still haven't seen the Lost Kingdom of Atlantis. If this be the case, then it's likely that this Lost Kingdom will be explored in the next Aquaman film, which will undoubtedly be happening considering the commercial success of this movie.
Above and below. Hey, wait!
What?
Should we have written it down first?
I memorized it. Didn't you?
Oh, yeah, totally.
What did you just say?
Something trident.
Though not a perfect film, this was a fantastic addition to the DC extended universe that showed exactly what can happen when you hire great directors whose films are driven by story and not just spectacle, as was the case with Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, and to a lesser extent Wonder Woman, which has been a saving grace for DC in recent years. Though personally I felt as though some parts fell flat, and I had issues with the film's structure and overall pacing, Aquaman is still a fun, bright and colourful superhero movie that embraces its silliness in a tongue-in-cheek way. The fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously is also one of its major strengths, which along with its stellar cast, bombastic visuals, beautiful soundtrack and outstanding direction has brought Aquaman from a DC hero that was the butt of all jokes to one that we can admire and respect. Well, that's all for today, folks. Big thanks to all of you guys who requested we explore the 7 Kingdoms of Atlantis as featured in Aquaman. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content. And if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Nihat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
You have a mother's trident. Powerful, but flawed like her. I wield my father's. And it has never known defeat!